Have you ever wondered what a community actually looks like on paper? I mean, really think about it. If you took the heart, the daily struggles, the big victories, and just the everyday conversations of a neighborhood and printed them out week after week, what exactly would you see? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to explore exactly that. We're diving deep into the incredible legacy of the Carolina Panorama. Take a look at their mission, printed right there for everyone to see. Positive news for a positive community. Simple, right? But for 40 years, the Carolina Panorama has been this absolutely crucial, steady voice for the African American community in Central South Carolina. It's honestly so much more than just a newspaper. It's like a historical record, a cheerleader, and a giant community bulletin board all rolled into one. Okay, so let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key areas: positive news, empowering youth, civic participation, challenging narratives, and finally, advocating for Black capitalism. Section 1. 40 Years of Positive News, Highlighting Local Achievements. To truly get the vibe of this publication, we gotta start at the micro level. We need to see how a local paper deliberately chooses to uplift its community. You see, the Carolina Panorama has this incredibly rich history. It was established back in 1986 by Nathaniel Abraham Sr. And what's really special here, and honestly super rare today, is that it remains fiercely independent and family-run. It's actually in its 3rd generation now, proudly operating with Nathaniel Abraham III as a technology executive. Longevity like that in local print journalism, literally unheard of these days. And this brilliantly illustrates how the publication curates a wide spectrum of local victories to set a consistently positive tone. Just look at the highlights from a single week. They're celebrating Terica Pay being named the new Assistant Athletic Director at Claflin University. They're applauding South Carolina Highway Patrol Colonel Christopher Williamson, who happens to be the first African-American commander of the patrol, receiving the prestigious Order of the Palmetto. And they're spreading the word about $3 million in grant funding awarded to preserve historic Black places. It's all about lifting people up. They also do a fantastic job of anchoring local sports pride. I mean, take the story of Columbia native Charles Z.B. Benson. The paper highlights his induction into the SIAC Athletic Hall of Fame. This guy was a 2-sport star at Benedict College in the early 1960s who, get this, literally ran a 55-yard touchdown the very first time he touched the ball in college. No way, right? He was so talented on the baseball diamond too that Buck O'Neil signed him, and he spent 6 years in the Chicago Cubs minor league system. Preserving these local legends, well, that's a core part of the paper's identity. Section 2. Empowering the Next Generation, Preparing Youth for the Future. Now, celebrating the past is obviously important, but preparing for the future? That's vital. The paper places a huge emphasis on youth leadership. For example, they feature Logan Wells, the recently crowned Miss South Carolina's teen. But notice, they don't just focus on her title. They spotlight her initiative, the Serve Spot. Wells is promoting this deeply empowering philosophy. Young people absolutely do not have to wait until they're adults to make a tangible difference. Her platform connects high school students statewide with meaningful community service projects today. We also see this huge commitment to youth in their coverage of the Prisma Health Youth Apprenticeships. The paper details how 6 local high school students from Richland School District 2 were selected for a highly rigorous program. Now, these aren't just your standard shadowing opportunities. Nope. These dual enrollment students went through intense interviews and resume reviews to earn actual paychecks in nursing support roles. They're gaining hands-on healthcare experience before they even walk across the high school graduation stage. How cool is that? Section 3. The Power of Participation, Civic Education and Engagement. So beyond professional and volunteer skills, the publication heavily emphasizes civic duty, making sure citizens are prepared long before they ever step into a voting booth. This is beautifully captured by the motto of the Young's Chapel AME Church: your voice, your vote, your power. The paper highlights how this local church brings the motto to life by hosting free community conversations. They bring in experts, like historian Dr. Robert Greene II from Claflin University, to educate residents on the hard-fought history of voting rights in South Carolina. We're talking from Reconstruction right through the Civil Rights Movement. It's all about addressing misinformation and encouraging deeply informed civic participation. Section 4. Challenging National Narratives. Commentaries by Ben Jealous. All right, now we're going to zoom out to the macro level, because the Carolina Panorama doesn't just report local news, it actually serves as a platform for challenging major national stereotypes. Consider this massive number for a second: 264,000. In a recent commentary analyzing national job reports, former NAACP President Ben Jealous points out that while the national unemployment rate officially dropped to 4.1% in July, it wasn't because a bunch of people suddenly found jobs. Actually, it was because 264,000 discouraged people simply left the labor force. Since they stopped looking for work out of frustration, the government just stopped counting them as unemployed, which artificially dropped the rate. Jealous uses this to argue that we really shouldn't just celebrate a low percentage, but rather look at the actual human beings hidden behind the math. Jealous also tackles deeply entrenched social stereotypes, specifically going after the narrative of the absent Black father. And he uses deep historical anchoring to disprove this. Just tracing the timeline, he points back to 1836, where runaway slave advertisements showed enslaved men risking actual death to escape and reunite with their wives. Then he points to 1862, where freedmen spent their hard-earned money placing newspaper ads, desperately searching for the children who had been sold away from them. And from there, he traces this fierce dedication to family all the way up to modern government surveys from the CDC. To firmly challenge that modern national narrative, Jealous cites this rather stark CDC data. When we look at the numbers, the data shows that 70% of Black fathers who live with their children bathe, dress, and change them daily, compared to 60% of white fathers. On top of that, 41% help with homework daily, compared to 28% of white fathers. So Jealous uses this data to impartially make the argument that Black fathers are actually among the most highly involved parents in the country, which directly contradicts those long-standing national stereotypes. Section 5. Advocating for Black Capitalism, a Publisher's Perspective. This brings us to the strong economic commentary provided by the paper's publisher, Nate Abraham Jr., during National Black Business Month. Now, Abraham uses his platform to vigorously advocate for capitalism over socialism. To make his point, he literally starts with the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of socialism, which is the governmental ownership of the means of production. Abraham argues that people often confuse basic government services, like paying for roads or fire departments, with socialism. But he contends that true socialism is collective ownership, and he uses his editorial space to argue that this model has, in his view, consistently failed. To back up his perspective, Abraham cites several specific historical examples. He points to the economic collapse of Venezuela under Hugo Chavez after businesses were confiscated. He looks way back to 1825 and Robert Owen's failed utopian commune in Indiana, New Harmony, which collapsed due to arguments over work expectations. He even points to the Pilgrims at Plymouth. He argues they initially starved under communal ownership and only truly thrived when the land was divided up privately. The absolute core thesis of Abraham's commentary is captured perfectly in this quote. Capitalists know that wealth has to be created. We need Black people creating, owning, and controlling businesses and resources, not government bureaucrats. He argues that to close the wealth gap, the community must embrace capitalism. As an example, he points to billionaire Akhil Dangote, who built massive wealth not by relying on the government, but by privately addressing the actual construction and energy needs of his community in Africa, literally building local cement plants and oil refineries. And well, that brings us full circle. From celebrating high school nursing apprentices and local baseball legends, to educating voters and debating national economic systems, the Carolina Panorama proves that a local newspaper is so much more than just ink on a page. It is literally the lifeblood of civic and economic engagement. So taking all this in, we have to leave you with a provocative question to ponder today. Will you support the businesses and the journalistic voices in your own community to build a better future? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.